This ends today.
Congressman Barnes, wow. You know, I never really thought you'd have a promising political career, but less than half a term. Yikes.
We're taking you in, Val.
I don't think so. Junior varsity, Captain America.
Walker.
Oh, nice to see you, Ava. Elena, you look awful. You sure you're really ready for that public-facing role you asked me about?
Eat shit, Valentina. Where's Bob?
Look at you. You are all so adorable. Just think, I send you down there to kill each other, and instead, you make nice and you form a team. Who is this old Santa?
I'm Alexei Shostakov. The Red Guardian.
What?
Welcome to Superhero Cinephiles Podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and if you're hearing noise in the background, my son is chattering away, so apologies for that. But today, we are talking about Thunderbolts, 2025 Marvel Cinematic Universe film, and joining me to discuss this is returning guest Mike Sangregorio. Mike, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you on here. But sorry, guys, my kids are screaming in the background again. But before we get started talking about the movie, why don't you remind people about who you are and what you do?
I am a layperson. I'm a fan, and you and I met because we have both been guests on my friend Anthony's podcast, Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey.
Yes, and I've always enjoyed your appearances on there, especially your love of Morrison, something that we both share, and being able to connect with a lot of different guests on that show has been fun, but most especially you. You were one of those people that from the first time I heard you on the show, I'm like, man, I really want to talk with this guy at some point. And now, fortunately, we've had plenty of time to do that, and we'll likely have plenty more in the future, so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, it's always exciting when I can say, well, superheroes and comic books and all this other crap allowed me to have a friend that lives in Japan. It's like no other hobby has this.
Right, right. But anyway, before we start diving into Thunderbolts, what kind of stuff is grabbing your attention lately? Anything you're reading, anything you're watching that's really kind of getting your interest?
I recently watched the anime Chainsaw Man. I have not read the manga yet, not because I don't want to, but because I've enjoyed what I've had so much uh, that I want to give it a little bit of time. But I've always been a huge anime fan. This came recommended, and the movie was coming out this side, so I sat down and watched the entire thing, and I enjoyed every second of it. And I can't recommend it enough. And the movie was just as good. Have you watched that at all?
I have not, but my wife watched a little bit of it, and she was talking about it and telling me that apparently there's a lot of like Western movie references like throughout the entire thing.
It's constant. It's at first I thought that I was just seeing things, and then I looked it up online, and it's constant and it's intentional and it's beautiful because it's kind of the way Cowboy Bebop used to be, where the the texture they're adding to the story is just references to things that we already know. So I'm watching this and I'm like, well, I know exactly what that character's doing because I've seen No Country for Old Men or whatever the movie was. So, but that was that was the icing. It's this show with this insane premise of what if a kid who was like a maladjusted youth, had a chainsaw where his head should be, and he fights demons or whatever the thing is. But you find out it's this like deeply emotional story about how difficult it is to make human connection. And I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, they tricked me. They got me through the door with an over the top, great premise, and I'm sitting here and now I'm really, really upset over the way this poor kid and his demon dog is being treated. And that I feel like that's the highest compliment I can give to art if I can enjoy it on both of those levels, the throwaway level of the visuals, and then I'm still thinking about the characters long after I've finished watching it.
I'll have to check that out then. It's one of those things that I've been curious about, especially ever since my wife mentioned it, but it just never just haven't actually pulled the trigger and sat down and watched it yet. In large part because so much of what I read or watch these days is either for podcasts or it's for stuff I'm doing in my classes. So it can be tough to find time these days. In fact, for this movie too, earlier today I had recorded an episode for my Japan on Film podcast, and trying to squeeze both these movies in, I had to watch Thunderbolts while I was making dinner last night, and then afterwards my kids went to sleep, and then I was able to sit down and watch Baby Assassins for Japan on Film. So yeah, it can be tough to find the time these days. But for my part, I have, again, most of the stuff I've been consuming has been stuff for these shows, but I got the itch recently to dive into some of the Green Lantern run from Jeff Johns, which I was talking about with you a little bit off mic. We had covered Blackest Night on the show. The episode hasn't been released yet, but we covered it on the show, and I felt very lost reading that comic book. And then I had been listening to another podcast, The Iron Age of Comics, and they talked about the Kyle Rayner run that Ron Mars did. And then recently we were covering Justice League Doom and talking about Nathan Fillion's performance as Hal Jordan in that, and how much I really dug him in that. And that kind of gave me this itch, like, you know what, let me dive back into the Hal Jordan Green Lantern stuff that Jeff Johns did, because I didn't understand Blackest Night and I want to have more context for it. But also I had read Rebirth a while ago, and it's been a while, and I just wanted to kind of like get into it again and just kind of see what's the appeal of this guy that everybody thinks is the greatest Green Lantern. And I finished Rebirth, the reread of Rebirth, and I'm like halfway into No Fear, the first of the regular series trades, and I still don't get it, really. I think it's kind of what I'm reaching.
Yeah, I never got it. When I started reading comics, he was Parallax, Kyle was Green Lantern, and you would have these older fans at the comic book store that would just constantly be like, "Oh, you guys don't know what you're missing. Hal was great. He was so good. Editorial did him dirty, whatever." And then finally, when I was in college, they brought him back, and I was like, "Oh, now we're gonna have this great character, this Chuck Yeager type of guy." And then I'm reading the run, and I'm like, no, he's really boring. Like, he just flies. Like, that's his thing. Like, there's really very little development here. And I found myself going back to Kyle, and he stuck around, and I was like, oh no, I was right. Kyle is the most interesting Green Lantern. And then, this all got thrown away because the show came out, and everyone younger than us, their favorite Green Lantern is John Stewart. So it's kind of like, Hal really had his chance in the spotlight. And I feel like when he got all the attention, everyone was like, oh no, he's not as interesting as all the guys who came after him.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Chandler can make him more interesting once Lanterns comes out.
Yeah, I'm
But
super
yeah,
excited for that show.
yes, I saw the preview with that like HBO Max thing that they did, and just very brief scene, but it got me curious about it, especially since they're pulling inspiration from True Detective. I think that'll be I'm really curious to see how they're going to do that exactly. So I'm really very interested in that.
Yeah, if you want a good Green Lantern story that has nothing to do with the Jeff Johns run, Earth One Green Lantern. I think they're pulling some stuff for the show from that. That was very good. I really enjoyed. I think there were 2 volumes of that, and unfortunately, that line got folded. But if you can get a hold of those two, I can't recommend them enough.
I actually do have them. They are on my very, very, very massive comic TBR pile. And I think I'm gonna have to move that up a couple of rungs, because I have heard lots of nothing but good things about that book for a few years now. And now that I've got your recommendation too, I think that'll be something I have to dive into next.
Sounds good.
But anyway, today, as we mentioned, we are talking about Thunderbolts, 2025 film, and this features a Thunderbolts with an asterisk, because then we find out, spoilers, at the end of the movie they are actually the New Avengers, and that title has been kind of used in tandem over the time that since this movie came out. And so basically we've got this team of losers essentially in the MCU. We've got Yelena Belova coming back from Black Widow and Hawkeye, Florence Pugh. Sebastian Stan obviously is Winter Soldier, and we also got Wyatt Russell coming back as U.S. Agent off of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Um, uh, David Harbour as the Red Guardian, also off of Black Widow. Hannah John Kamen as Ghost, also from Ant-Man and the Wasp, who I never expected to see her again. So I was really kind of surprised that she popped up. And technically we also have Olga Kurilenko as Taskmaster, although she gets dispatched fairly early on. And then we've got Julia Louis-Dreyfus coming back as the Contessa, and rounding it all out is Lewis Pullman as the Sentry, or just Bob, as he's known throughout most of the film. So now they made a lot of departures from the Thunderbolts in the comics, right? The Thunderbolts in the comics, as it was originally conceived, was you have this. It was in the wake of the Onslaught crossover event where the Avengers and the Fantastic Four sacrificed themselves in order to be abused by Rob Liefeld in a pocket universe. And during that gap, Marvel had this, so what Marvel had done is, because the Avengers books and the FF books, they weren't selling so well, so they decided to outsource them to Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee. And that was 4 titles: Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, and Avengers. And Avengers and Cap were handled by Liefeld, although he got shuffled off fairly quickly. Whereas Jim Lee did the Fantastic Four and Iron Man, which I maintain are not bad books. I actually kind of dug those two when I read them. They were not the best, but they were interesting. They were it was kind of not so bad, at least, compared to what they were dealing with at Iron Man, especially with the crossing and all that stuff at the time. This was definitely an upgrade, I thought. But
I thought that Fantastic Four run in '96. I mean, I was the perfect age. I was 12 years old and I was already obsessed with Jim Lee, because as far as I was concerned, the X-Men hadn't existed before he redesigned them. So when I saw he was redesigning the Fantastic Four, I was in. I remember saving up my money so I could buy all the variant covers. And that sold me. The only problem with that is, I truly believe that if Jim had stayed on that book for 12 issues and really got a writer and really hammered it home, that would have been one of those perpetually reprinted books, because it would have looked gorgeous, it would have had his iconic designs, and they basically retold the first 50 issues of the Lee Kirby run back in the day. But the fact that they couldn't keep the momentum going, and there was all this behind the scenes stuff, is a tragedy. But the way it starts so strong, and it introduces that generation to those characters. I still go back to it every few years.
Yeah, and those designs are, I mean, I thought we didn't need the extra, hip belts or whatever they had there, which he loved to draw. But the basic FF costume design, though, those designs are solid, and so much so that they've popped up in different iterations here and there over the years. I mean, they were used when the FF appeared in the Spider-Man TV show in the 90s.
Yeah, and his version of Doctor Doom, you want to talk about off-brand,
Oh
the
yeah.
characters. Yeah, I mean exactly, the characters who um were featured in the Onslaught event. I mean, they didn't look the classic ways. They weren't being drawn the classic ways. They were a product of that time period. And when he came out, Jim Lee, he sat down, he said, "Wait a second, what does Doctor Doom really look like?" And then he drew the Kirby Doom, but updated with modern techniques and modern details and everything else. That was Doom for years. Like, they would just be like, "Do you want to know what Doctor Doom looks like? Here is the characters drawn by Jim Lee in Fantastic Four Volume 2." I mean, he got it. He nailed it. And you'd even see this when they came back, because they also did a back to basics approach. Everyone was like, "Wait a second. It's not that these characters aren't good. It's that they had gotten too far away from what made them popular in the first place." So in every couple of years, I feel like with the FF, it's like, not to get onto a soapbox here, but it's the only run that Lee and Kirby finished, right? Like, you get to the end of FF 100, and whatever the reasons the book ends, it ends. They're together. They've defeated God. They have a kid. There's very little else to tell with that, which is why you just kind of retell those stories forever and ever and ever. So it's always funny with the Fantastic Four, where it's like, oh, it's been 5 years. Someone's someone's starting it again. They go right back to the beginning and they try to build it up. But I do think that for all the faults, that type of relaunch is necessary every once in a while, and Jim Lee knocked it out of the park with what he had to work with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But in that gap year that they had in like the 96, 97, Marvel had ended up playing a little bit of a jazz, and they were doing some really experimenting with some lesser known characters. So this is when we got Steve Siegel on Alpha Flight, we got Joe Kelly's Deadpool, Mark Waid on Kazar, John Ostrander on Heroes for Hire. But also, you had Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley come out with this book called Thunderbolts, and it was billed on the first issue. It's like they're billed as like this brand new team, they've never been seen before, and it's billed on the first issue like you will never guess the secret of Marvel's new superhero team. And even at that time, like I was in junior high school at the time, and I was already starting to feel a little bit jaded by those kind of like cover gimmicks that they'd always say, like because you demanded it, or nothing will ever be the same
Will
again.
ever be the same again? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then I read the first issue of Thunderbolts, and I get to the end, and I was an X-Men guy, so I had no context for like the Avengers really at that time. And they get to the end, and the guy and Citizen V pulls off his mask, and it's Baron Zemo, and I'm like, who? And then they announce that they're all the Masters of Evil, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I think I get it. They're supervillains posing as heroes. Okay, I get it, but it didn't have the big impact that it probably had if you were an Avengers fan. But that was kind of the gist of that original run, was these were villains posing as heroes, but over time, a lot of them kind of realized, hey, being a hero is actually kind of nice. People like us now. People are giving us stuff. We're actually kind of, it's actually kind of fun being a hero. And then eventually Zemo would betray the team, and they'd fall under Hawkeye's wing. And then the team went through a bunch of iterations over the years. A lot of times they kind of go back and forth between villains being reformed or villains trying to reform, or also into like kind of Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, which is kind of what Ellis did, and then Andy Diggle as well, and then Jeff Parker, I think, in the Heroic Age. And both of those, I've dug both approaches. Like, other than the Daniel Way stuff when Red Hulk was involved, I don't think there's really been a bad run of Thunderbolts, at least that I've read. I mean,
Can
but
I
what
just
about you?
say,
Yes,
I
yes.
know people don't like that Daniel Way run. I do, and one of the biggest reasons is Steve Dillon on the art. I will read anything. I will defend any book that man drew. Gone Too Soon. He did at least the first two arcs on that thing. So I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people don't consider it, part of the greater canon. But oh man, I would buy that again with no word balloons.
Dude, Chuck Austin and now Daniel Way. You're starting to make me question your tastes.
Well, again, it's more Steve Dillon. I don't hate Dan Way the way some people do, but for that book in particular, if it had been drawn by anyone other than Steve Dillon, I probably would have skipped it myself.
Mhm.
But being such a Preacher fan and everything, I mean, he worked on Punisher, he worked on so much other stuff before we lost him. His name alone, I was like, well, no, that's staying on the pull list because again, it's like even if I'm going to skip his wonky plots, it's like, man, I could watch him draw, Hulk, the leader, all the characters who are on that team. Punisher, again, a return to form with Frank. It was a delight to look at, even if I wasn't always
Mhm.
reading it as detailed as I would have the previous and the later runs.
Yeah, I read a few of the issues on Marvel Unlimited, and again, yeah, you're right. The art is gorgeous, but just the writing, I couldn't go beyond like I think two issues, and then I tapped out. Um, but other Thunderbolt stuff, like I came to it late. I came in during the Niciesa run after Busiek had left, and it wasn't until years later that I went back and I read the Busiek stuff all the way through. Um, but I thought Niciesa and Busiek, they were definitely cooking on that book, especially and Niciesa when he came back on it in the around the Civil War era. Again, really good stuff there when it was the new Thunderbolts. But what about you? I mean, obviously, other than the Way and Dylan stuff, what is your history with the Thunderbolts?
I picked up issue one off the stands. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know who any of those characters were other than the Beetle because he was a Spider-Man villain at the big reveal, but I was hooked. And I that became top of my pile book until it ended pretty much. And I was fully invested in the arcs. I cannot overemphasize how formative that Thunderbolts run was to my love of comics. It was perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm obsessed with Mark Bagley. I'm obsessed with Kurt Busiek. And then later on, I found out that some of that stuff had the involvement of legendary Marvel writer Roger Stern, who had written, among many, many other things, my favorite Avengers run of all time, which featured the story Under Siege, of which Thunderbolts is kind of a sequel to. It's got a lot of the same characters. It's a Baron Zemo focused plot. It's about really actually getting the better of the Avengers, not just confronting them and, getting overpowered like the Legion of Doom does. But no, I'm a little obsessed with it. And then you mentioned this already, but after the big initial fight where the Baron is defeated by these again, we have to say they're bottom shelf villains. They're the type of villains who wouldn't have been in a movie if not for their redos here. They all decide, yeah, they like being superheroes. Fake it till you make it. And then, as you mentioned, Hawkeye comes in, and Hawkeye is the original. I'm only a villain because of a misunderstanding, and it turns out I like being a hero much more. And he does what Captain America did for him, which is say, well, now wait a second. If you actually do want to make a go at this, none of you are mass murderers. None of you are unredeemable. None of you have crossed the line. Let's try this. Let's do this. And then they turn out to be superheroes. And very famously, Melissa Gold Songbird actually joins the Avengers and becomes like a legitimate top shelf superhero. So I go back to that book, I would say once a year, and I reread the whole thing. When they announced the movie, I was beside myself. And then even when I realized most of the characters weren't going to be from the show, excuse me, from the original run, I was still excited because the the theme, the feel, the vibes, as the kids say, are the same. Where it's a bunch of people who have nothing going for him. They've done terrible things. They need to make up for it. They need purpose. They're being manipulated by someone who is cartoonishly evil. And then at the end of the day, they decide, no, you know what? We actually like doing the right thing if we're doing it together. So watching the movie mirror those beats of especially the Busiek issues. I think Busiek is just a phenomenal writer. Like he really understands story structure, character, soap opera. I've never read something by him I didn't love. So I am on board. 10 out of 10. Whatever's got their name up top gets pulled no matter what.
Oh yeah, same here. I mean, Busiek was my introduction to the Avengers when he did the Heroes Return stuff. That was got me into the Avengers in the first place, and I go back to that run a lot myself. And he is one of these writers, and who is like one of these, I call them the nostalgia writers, but he's different in some ways because you've got Mark Waid, Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, yeah, a bunch of other ones who they have this nostalgia bone in their body, this one eye on nostalgia. Morrison's kind of his own camp in some ways too, but they also have their own little like weird nostalgia hangups, like something that holds them back a little bit at some time, like their own little like personal pet things or something like that. But Busiek doesn't seem to have that. Like you can feel the nostalgia in his stuff, but it's also still very forward thinking at the same time. Like better than anyone else. I think he does a really good job of taking what has been done in recent years, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then not just throwing it out, but trying to find some way to work within it. Whereas the other ones, they'll just be like, oh, we're just going to erase that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't know if you've read it, but I've read most of his creator-owned Astro City, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It's the archetypes. We're going to play with versions of the archetypes that we can break if we need to. And it's that same thing where it's like, I want to show you why I liked these concepts to begin with, but I want to take them a little bit further. I want them to live in the world that I live in. And that just doesn't mean they're going to get older and they're going to complain about getting older and they might get married or something. It's like, no, there's that emotional maturity that comes along with these characters. The book really focuses on Mel, who I think is the same character in the movie, though they never confirm that. And he really gives her a background of she was the screaming Mimi, she was a wrestler, she was a character who just you would never know about. She probably had a handbook appearance, and that was it. And then you get to watch her say, okay, all of that happened, all of that nonsense happened, but but there's more to her than that. You're going to watch her have relationships with other characters and fall in love and have bad days and have an arch rival with Moonstone and the whole thing. And at the end, you're going to be with her. You're going to watch her again go past where she came from, but not forget any of that other stuff because all that awful stuff made her what she was. So I agree with you. I really do. I think he takes everything that came before and he says, okay, there it is. I get it. I love it. I understand why. I'm going to show you why I love it, but we're going to show you what comes next. And again, I'm happy to pay to join him on that ride.
You know what? I have seen Thunderbolts several times now, and of course, I also echo everything you said about Songbird. For some reason, I never made that connection that Mel in the movie is Melissa Gold Songbird. That makes so much more sense. I
Yeah,
can't
I
believe I
only
never picked
know
up on
that
that.
because originally it was supposed to be a different actress, the co-lead from The Bear. And for some reason, I'm not sure on all the details, she had to bow out. So this actress, who I only know from the movie Drive-By Dolls, um, she came on and she plays the character Mel, and everyone was asking her, well, wait a second, are you playing Melissa Gold? And I guess she said, well, I'm not sure. But someone at some point was like, well, she's wearing a songbird necklace and she's playing the same role, so we're gonna kind of go with it. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think we're missing out that she didn't have giant pink wings or anything like that.
Hmm.
But all the scenes where she's talking to Bucky about this is your moment to choose whether you're going to be, you know, honest with yourself or loyal just for the sake of it. Again, to me, that's Hawkeye talking to her in comics I read 25 years ago. And it was
Yeah.
perfect because it was like, sure, the details are a little different, but this is a $200 million movie or whatever. And the fact that they just had to make a couple of small changes, but to be honest with the emotional beats, I was there, man. I really was. And if she wasn't playing the same character, she still filled the same character need in the story. So I thought she did a great job.
Yeah. Well, on that note, yeah, Io Edebiri was originally supposed to play Mel, and also Stephen Yen was supposed to play Bob,
Oh,
actually.
that's cool. I didn't
But
know that. Okay.
yeah, but what happened was the strike caused a lot of delays in production, and when they were able to resume production, Stephen Yen had scheduling conflicts. He had to back out. I think it was the same thing for Edibiri that she had to back out as well because of the scheduling conflicts that came across because of that. And so then they had recast with oh, I'm gonna break. Well, obviously we had Lewis Pullman come in as Bill, and as Mel, it was Geraldine. Oh God, I apologize in advance because I'm probably
I
gonna
can't
butcher this
pronounce it.
name.
Yeah, I didn't want to butcher it.
Viswanathan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I was despite loving the Thunderbolts, or maybe because I love the Thunderbolts so much in the comics and all the different iterations, I was kind of iffy on the lead up to this movie because it felt kind of like they were just picking the name out of a hat because they didn't really because you and they're kind of in a difficult space too because with Thunderbolts you can't really do that Masters of Evil reveal for in the MCU for two reasons. First off, there's not enough villains that are hanging around to really be a Masters of Evil. Um, but also, second, you'd have to market the movie and never once reveal any of the actors' names because the second you reveal the names, the secret is out, and it just I so they it would be impossible, I think, to do that in the current media environment. Um, and the other option is to go like the Suicide Squad route or the Red Hulk team route, which is also kind of similar to the Suicide Squad type thing. And I thought that's what they were leaning towards. And instead we got something that was kind of different about it. So I went to see it just kind of out of curiosity more than anything. In a lot of the run up and the trailers and stuff, they were kind of playing up more of the humor aspect, I think, kind of like what they did with the Suicide Squad movie as well. Um, and then I went to see it and I was pleasantly surprised at what it ended up being because it was not at all what I expected, but what I got was very good.
Yeah, I agree completely. It, you're absolutely right. And then they couldn't have done it the original way with the Masters of Evil reveal. But at the same time, it's funny that knowing they still needed a big central conflict, they did something that a lot of these movies failed to do, which is introduce two amazing antagonists, right? So you have Valentina, you have Elaine. I keep messing up her real name, but you have Elaine playing Valentina as the evil inversion of Nick Fury, and she knocks it out of the park. And then you have the Sentry, one of the most powerful DC character, excuse me, Marvel characters. And by presenting that as the immediate opposition, you give these characters who have nothing going for them such a conflict that it's like, okay, maybe you weren't the Masters of Evil, maybe you're not on as clear a redemption arc, but you've immediately been given incredibly high stakes. How are you going to deal with that? And that's why I personally love the ending when they walk through the banner and right outside. That's right outside Grand Central. That's right around the corner from where the Avengers first gather in 2012. Literally, you can almost see the 2 points from each other. And she announces them as the new Avengers. I cheered. I was like, that's perfect. That's right out of Dark Avengers #1. That is a perfect evolution for where those characters go. And if anything, you gave me a new version. I almost want to see that. I'm sure it is, but I want to see that team in comics because it's like, yeah, let's do that. When the entire world is now looking at you and saying, well, the real heroes are gone. We know what you did. We don't care anymore. There's about to be secret wars. God's coming to Earth. What can you do? Can you defend us? It's like, I'm on board for that. That's a Marvel story if I ever heard one.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk more about this, dive into it.
Blast off into a new universe with Corsairs, a new sci-fi space opera serial by me, Percival Constantine. In these adventures, join the crew of the Corsair, a group of intergalactic mercenaries as they struggle to survive in the depths of corporate-controlled space. If you're a fan of Firefly, Cowboy Bebop, or Guardians of the Galaxy, then you're going to love Corsairs. Subscribers to my Patreon get 2 new episodes a week, while free members get 1 new episode a week starting in December. Patreon offers new subscribers a 7-day free trial, but I'm also throwing in another perk. If you sign up with the coupon code SCP, you'll get 90% off your first month. So visit patreon.com/Percival Constantine and join in the adventures. We all love superhero movies and TV shows, but what about the comics that inspired them? Marvel, DC, Image, and more have provided the template for the movies and shows we all enjoy watching, and it's important to honor that tradition by buying and reading comic books. Superhero Cinephiles is proud to be an affiliate of mycomicshop.com. It began as a small mail-order business operated by junior high school student Buddy Saunders all the way back in 1960, and has been operating on the internet since 1997. My Comic Shop has new releases, value packs, back issues, trade paperbacks, comic art, regular auctions, and a whole lot more, including 35% discounts on pre-orders. You can also sell your own comics or utilize their consignment services. You can even create your own want list of comics you're searching for. To get started, check out our affiliate link in the show notes or on the superherocinephiles.com homepage.
And we're back and ready to dive into Thunderbolts here. And one of the things that, consistently amazes me about the later MCU movies is Florence Pugh. Like, my God, everything this woman is in, she just completely steals the show. I don't even care about Yelena in the comics, but Florence Pugh as Yelena in the MCU, I am completely here for. She brings so much character to this character. Like the humor, the pathos, the everything about it is just perfect. Like, she was my favorite part of the Black Widow movie and my favorite part of the Hawkeye TV show. Like, everything she's done, she just sings. And then in this too, she's my favorite part of this. Like, I cannot say enough good things about her performance as Yelena and how much she has really actually made me care about that character.
That's so funny. I feel the opposite.
Really?
I don't like her at all. She's actually my least favorite part of this movie in particular. I don't get it. I don't get it. The first time I watched Black Widow, the movie, I didn't care for it. I tried watching it again. And most people I know feel the way you do, where they're like, well, she's an amazing character. I want to follow her, the whole thing. And every time I watch it, I'm like, are you a fan of the show Parks and Rec?
Yes, I love Parks and Rec.
She is my little Sebastian. Every time someone starts talking about her and they're like, she's a great character, she's a great actress, the whole thing, just looking at it and I was like, oh, it's got to be me. Because you all agree with each other and I trust your opinion. So it's got to be me. I don't know. I have no idea why. I've never seen her in anything else. So it must be on me. Again, I don't think she's bad, but I love watching U.S. Agent be this like awful, flawed person. I love watching Bucky struggle with, him in the bunk trying to figure out how to work the system. I love watching everyone else, even Taskmaster, though, she's not really Taskmaster, but Dreykov's daughter. It's like, well, no, I want to follow her because she's throwing around a shield and using Hawkeye's bow. But whenever Yelena's on screen, I'm just like, I don't buy it. The one area though I will say that I loved about her was I loved her and Bob. And I could watch them all day. I love watching their emotional relationship form. I love seeing the Red Guardian step into the father figure role. Again, going back to the comics, very similar to the way the character of Atlas was with the character of Songbird. So it's again a lot of those echoes, whether intended or not. But whenever she's in scene with Bob, whenever they're talking about just the existential misery they'll have, right? The anti-life equation that is their lives in the modern world, and the fact that she even names the void, I thought was great. I loved all of that. So again, I'm not saying she's bad in any way, but for the most part, I'm just like, well, okay, you're my least favorite of all my favorites, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Wow. That's a I'm a little bit speechless now. Yeah, I cannot understand that at all. But I will agree with you on her relationships and her interactions with Bob and with Alexei. Like her and Pugh and Pullman, like their chemistry really works very well together. And you know what was weird? I saw something on Reddit the other day where someone was saying like, "Oh my God, I hope they don't make them a couple." And I'm like, I don't think that's a risk of happening. Like it just seemed like a very sincere friendship and like just a very sincere bond between the two of them.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That never occurred to me. Yeah, I guess, one of the things that I love when it happens in a movie or really any piece of media is as you said, it's like, you know, they're friends and they're really good friends. And at the end, when she's like, what happens when he comes back? Well, we're going to be here. It's like she's taking on an immense responsibility. And I like the fact that she sticks with it. And she's like, no, this is purpose, right? This is what my sister did. This is what my dad was talking about. I feel good about this. I'm going to protect this guy who, again, they keep saying it, but it's true. He's the century. He's the most powerful superhero. He was made cartoonishly strong to show, what a Superman figure might be like in the real world long before Zack Attack Snyder got his hands on those characters. So, no, I love the two of them together. It never even occurred to me that they would go out with each other, but that's interesting. I'm certainly, waiting to see what he does on the next two Avengers films, considering he's going to be a real wild card,
Yeah, you know what? I'm hoping they do more with him than what was done in the comics because in the comics there's this great comic that Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee did about the Sentry and about this idea. And it was a very different idea from what it is here. Like in the comics, he's this forgotten superhero, right? The whole hook of the series was that, oh, this was a hero that Stan Lee had created, but had never actually published, and then we had discovered it. And it was all, marketing bullshit. But and later it came out, it's like, no, Paul Jenkins created the character himself. But the idea
Well,
of him
with
being this
Rick Veitch.
with Rick Veitch. Okay. And
Yeah.
then this idea that he was this forgotten hero in the Marvel universe, that he had to erase the entire universe's memory of him and all that. And then now it's starting to come back. That was a really cool thing that they did in the comics. Um, and they had to put the genie back in the box basically at the end of that series. And then Bendis came along and, like many things, he ruins it. And he does this whole thing where he brings the Sentry back. It's like he's going to be a member of the Avengers and all that. And then Bendis doesn't know what to do with him because he's so much more overpowered than all the other characters. So he spends most of the time just locked in the tower.
It was so funny. The first time I read, I think that was the second arc of Bendis's New Avengers, where the
Mm.
Sentry shows up, and I was sitting there and I was reading that, and that was the first time I can remember thinking to myself, "Oh, you didn't understand that story. You didn't. I'm not saying I'm not a professional writer. I'm not writing the Avengers, and Bendis has written many, many, many comics that I love, but it was obvious to me in that moment, like." You didn't understand that book. It was a complex book. It was a weird book. It was an emotionally charged book. You didn't get it because you just saw like, oh, a new character. He's very powerful. No one's using him. I should stick him on my Avengers team. And it's like, no, that's the opposite of the message from that original thing. So I'm with you. That was a misstep, and he never did anything interesting with him. Though it was good to see in that book that they merged the Avengers Tower and the Watchtower, and that was something I was excited to see in the movie. When Val is like, "Oh, welcome to the Watchtower," I was like, I never thought. I keep saying that, but I never thought I would see that in the movie.
Yeah, they found when they announced in Homecoming that Tony was selling Avengers Tower, my mind meant like everybody, I think my mind went straight to, oh, it's going to be the Baxter building. That's what it's going to be. Which and then it wasn't. And instead we get it here and we find out that Val's the one who bought it and it's now the Watchtower. And I thought that was a really cool idea that they did there. Because I was never a fan of the Avengers Tower thing that Bendis introduced. It just felt like you keep trying to force the JLA stuff on the Avengers, and the way you're doing it just does not clicking.
Yeah, I never really cared for it in the comics. I'm with you. It's like I get it. You want to do Justice League, Avengers, whatever. It wasn't bad. I mean, again, I get wanting to have a skyscraper in the city, but I thought the movie one was great because again, it's the MetLife building, it's above Grand Central, it's so perfect and iconic. But yeah, and the movie uses it much better than the comic did. But again, the comic had that weird like haunted house feel. Like once you realize that the reason the building was so easy for him to get and so easy for him to construct is, all the centuries nonsense from this forgotten series of stories is hanging out at the edges. It's almost like a horror story. He's got Clock and the dog and the wife and everything else. And then once they kind of remember it and the thing just appears, they're like, oh man, we didn't even understand how far into someone else's story we were. So I thought that was a good use. But yeah, for the most part, when the Sentry shows up, it's like, he comes pre-installed with his arch nemesis. So you're either going to tell that story or you need to introduce some other MacGuffin to make him go away. One of my favorite Sentry stories was actually Age of Sentry by Jeff Parker, which is a faux prequel where it shows the stories that the Sentry would have been involved with back in the day, concurrent with all the other stuff. And it's basically just a riff on Silver Age Superman. It's Parker's version of the Supreme story, and I love it because it ends with the Sentry realizing he can no longer be a hero because the Void's going to destroy the world. So it leads up to that. And I always tell people like they'll never reprint that again, but if you can find it anywhere, read it because it's worth the price of admission.
I've never even heard of this. I'm gonna have to see if I can track that down then. That sounds really cool. But speaking of the Sentry, like Lewis Pullman is he I was thinking about what it would have been like if Stephen Yen had been in this movie. And as much as I think Stephen Yen is a great actor, I just think Lewis Pullman was a definite upgrade because just the way he plays Bob, just like how like awkward he is throughout the entire movie, even when he's the Sentry, I thought was just so perfect.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his father, Bill Pullman. So when I heard it was him, I was like, well, that's almost too perfect. And then you have him standing opposite Wyatt Russell, and I'm like, I, I love both of your dads, and now you guys are standing here playing two of my favorite comic book characters. So this is kind of perfect. But I every scene he in is every scene he's in is great, but the one that I always come back to is when he walks down the stairs and he's in the Sentry costume and he's dyed his hair and he does this little thing where he kind of like looks up and he's proud for the first time, and then he immediately realizes his new friends aren't there to support him in his new job. They're there because they realize he's the most dangerous person alive, and he suddenly like he loses the posture. He does the reverse of that Clark Kent thing from Superman 78 where he goes back down. And it's a little thing, and I don't know if it was the director, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, sir, you completely understood the assignment. Like you got it. You completely nailed this. I'm never going to be able to see that character again without thinking of you. So that's why I keep saying I hope he's going to be in the next two films because it was perfect casting. It really was. He embodied that character in a way that made him as interesting in the translation as he's ever been on the page.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like not only does he look the part, but just like the way he embodies the character, it was perfect. And I was also thinking about the Bill Pullman and and the White Russell thing too. and also
Jack
made me
Burton.
think
We
like
can call him Jack
Jack
Burton.
Burton.
It's
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. You can.
Kurt
I do
Russell.
it every day. I call him Jack Burton.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and it's like, you know what? Maybe we just not now we just need to get Jack Quaid into one of the MCU so we can just complete it.
I would be so happy if Wee Huey shows up in literally anything. I don't even care what the role
Mhm.
is. I want Wee Huey. You know, they got to recast Microchip now, so maybe he can play that. But yeah,
Oh, that'd
I
be
would.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, get him back in the Ennis stuff. But yeah, I love Jack Quaid over there. So if he wants to play something in the MCU, I'm 100% down.
Yeah, definitely. And then Wyatt Russell too. Like I loved him in The Falcon and Winter Soldier. And it's funny, my wife watched parts of Falcon and Winter Soldier with me, and anytime Wyatt Russell came on screen, she's like, I hate him. She's like, I hate this guy. I'm like, that's the point. That he's doing the good job. It's like, I want Chris Evans back. I'm like,
Yep, that's the point. That's what he's supposed to be doing. Yep.
but to see him go from that and then to see him in this and just like Wyatt Russell again, U.S. agent, not a terribly interesting character in a lot of instances in the comics, but Wyatt Russell really made me like him a whole lot more.
The thing I agree. The thing I love about Russell's performance in the show and in the movie is, and your wife nailed it, is he's not afraid to understand that the character is not always acting in heroic fashion. Like the character, when he is able to act heroic, is a big moment for him, and that's incredibly consistent with the way the character is originally portrayed. Steve Rogers is naturally heroic. That's why he's constantly given external threats, people to inspire, opportunities where you can see how important that is. The whole point of John Walker is that he's not that. You know, he was chosen by, you know, the Reagan, basically the ruling conservatives, to say, well, we need a Cap who's going to fall in line, who, when he disagrees with us, isn't going to speak on that because, well, that's bad for business. John Walker was just happy to have the job. So I feel like Wyatt really nailed that because every once in a while, John gets an opportunity to be heroic and he does it. But again, he has to find that moment. And that's what distinguishes him from Captain America. He's not just Captain America in a different costume. He's not a villain. He is a different type of hero, but he's still trying to be a hero. My favorite gimmick in the comics with him, going back actually, you know, he was one of the first antagonists the original Thunderbolts faced because, you know, he wasn't heroic enough to have died with Onslaught, is he always has a different shield and it's always getting wrecked. And it's a joke, right? Like Steve Rogers' shield is unbreakable. It's always the same. It's been the same since Kirby drew it in Captain America Comics number 2 or 3 or whatever it was. But John Walker always has a different shield and it's always getting destroyed. It's always some stupid new version. And I love that because it's a way of signifying that the character is always looking for the next opportunity to do something great, but it's not necessarily going to happen. And that's reflected in the fact that he has the opposite of an unbreakable shield. He has an incredibly breakable shield. And at the end of the movie, when they show the Sentry bending it and him actually holding on to it, I thought, again, you got it. You understand what makes that character unique. So, you know, bravo.
Yeah, I never clued into that about the shield in the comics, but you're right. That's a really good way of looking at it. And also the scene when he gets into his own void induced fantasy and he sees himself with his son and looking at his phone while his son is crying in the crib. I gotta say, man, as a parent myself, I'm just like that made me think a few times, like all the times when like I was using my phone or something while my kids were around doing something else. And so now it makes me second guess myself a lot now because of that.
Yeah, it was the best use of a cell phone I've ever seen in a movie. Normally, whenever a character pulls out a tablet or a cell phone on a movie or TV show, I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Don't do that. But when he did it in that scene, I was like, oh, that's gonna stick. That's gonna hang out in the back of my mind. So, and it's funny too because that was the least. I don't know why it was shot, but that was the least like voidish scene. Like there were no horror elements. It was just literally him and his wife having a conversation and him acting very poorly. So it was like, yeah, that's gonna stick with me. So I'll say I feel the
Yeah.
same way.
And then of course we get Hannah John Kamen as coming back as Ghost. I'll be honest, she didn't do a whole lot for me. I don't feel like and she's a good actress, right? Did you ever see the TV show Killjoys?
No, I've never seen her in anything other than her role as Ghost.
Killjoys was this short-lived sci-fi series. It was like kind of like they're like intergalactic mercenary type things. And she was the main character in that, and it was a cool series. I think it only ran for like one, maybe two seasons, but it was a pretty cool series. Pretty, if you like sci-fi action stuff, it's definitely worth a watch. And so when I heard that she was going to be in the MCU, I got really excited at first, but in Ant-Man and the Wasp, it felt like they didn't really it felt like she was just there because they needed an antagonist. They didn't really know what to do with her too much. And in this too, I get kind of the same sense. Like she got a little bit more time to show off, but not too much. Mostly she's just kind of there a lot of the time.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I felt really bad that she didn't have more to do in this. And I was surprised by that too, because I don't know, there were a lot of scenes that went on longer than I thought they would. I'm not super familiar with the director's work, so I don't know. I don't think he has any other major superhero movies under his belt. But some of the scenes went a little long, and I was like, well, those could have been scenes where Ghost had real moments. And I love the actress. I loved her in Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's funny too because the character she's playing was a Thunderbolt, but he's so weird in the comic that he bears no resemblance to her whatsoever. They barely have anything in common other than the name and like like a couple of percent of the power. But I like her. I like what they did there, and I love the idea that she was trying to be helped by what's his name,
Scott.
Goliath in that
Oh yeah,
movie, and
Goliath. Yeah.
and everyone else. So it's like, well, there's a lot more here, and I really think you can play with that. Also, the most visually interesting power of everyone in the Thunderbolts movie. I mean, they call attention to it. They say, "Oh, we all punch and kick," and I'm like, No, she's got a really, really interesting power. She's tied to the quantum zone. We know how important that is. So I really did. I wanted to see more of her. I hope she comes back. And yeah, if there's more scenes with her that got cut out, I hope they put them back in because I would buy that on 4K.
Yeah, apparently what had happened was because originally Taskmaster was not originally supposed to die. So apparently, and I don't know how much of this was filmed or how much of this was just in the script, but she and Taskmaster and Ghost actually had a lot more screen time together or a lot more intention
Oh,
scenes
okay.
together. And so I think when they decided to kill Taskmaster, that left a lot of Ghost's material on the cutting room floor as well.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I was surprised that she was in it for such a short period of time because you mentioned before the Suicide Squad, and it's not it's not an unfair comparison. They're both teams of supervillains, usually lower on the tier who do things. But yeah, traditionally, it's not like the Shield's not sending them on missions and saying, "Well, if you come back, you get a pardon." It's usually like, "No, we assume you're all going to come back." So yeah, I was surprised for her to have her show up and be killed off. Um, yeah, that was unfortunate just because, man, in the one scene we got, she looked like Taskmaster. She acted like Taskmaster. And I was like, well, yeah, that would be great. Can we have a little bit more of that character?
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. It's so weird because throughout the entire Black Widow movie, I I was really annoyed at what they had done to Taskmaster, and I'm just like, man, I hope we never see that character again. And then they announced she was going to be in Thunderbolts. I'm like, I don't really want to see her again in this. But then I watched her, and in that one scene, and even just like that one line she has to Yelena and her, but like the look on her face and everything, I'm just like, I kind of want to see more of her now. And then they kill her right away.
Yeah, I was excited because, one of the things that separates Taskmaster from other supervillains in the comics is, he's very honest about the fact that he works for the highest bidder, right? Like he'll work for Hydra as long as they're paying him, but he doesn't go out in the field. He trains the agents, he performs specific functions, and that way he's never caught. And whenever he is caught, he's like, "Oh no, I'll tell you who hired me. I don't care. No one, if I have to go to jail for 5 years, no one can kill me. I'm the best marksman on the planet or whatever. I watched Bullseye all those times." Um, and I was kind of expecting like, oh, okay, Valentina will just turn to her and say, well, here's a check and I've signed it and I didn't put a number on here. I need you to kill everyone else in the room. And she would be able to do that, presumably. So that's what I was hoping about, because it's like, well, if you want to take out a super soldier, you need Taskmaster. And we saw a little bit of that in Black Widow, but here would have been like, okay, can the other ones get together long enough to survive against this woman who's probably been trained, Bucky especially. It's like she's probably been trained on all you guys. You aren't going to be able to overpower her unless you can work together and outthink her. So I was looking forward to that. It's a shame we didn't get it.
And I think she would have been the most, aside from Ghost, she would have been the most interesting to see in a fight because of all the different weapons she has. Whereas everybody else, like as you said, and like Elena says, all we do is punch and shoot. And so to see more of Taskmaster, like using the bow and arrow, using the shield, using all these different uh tricks and stuff. And you could have even tied it into the comics as well, because there's the storyline that Busiek did where he brought in the Scourge character, who was actually Nomad, the former Bucky, and he had like all these different weapons.
The second I want to clarify this
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to think this out too because this is the comic continuity gets so confusing. So in that story, the character that was the second Scourge, and he was revealed to be the second Bucky. So not for those listening at home, not James Barnes. There was another one introduced later. We're not going into that story. It's not very good, but there was another Bucky. He got turned into the second Scourge. Sorry.
But before that, he became the second Nomad as well.
Yes, you're right. I forgot about that. Okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, he became the second Nomad, and this is Nisiesa going back to his old Nomad series, which
Yeah.
is not available anywhere as far as I know. But one of the cool things about his version of Scourge was he had all these different weapons, like he was storing them in his belt with like pim particles to shrink them all down, and so it was this really cool arsenal of stuff he had. So if you'd combined that aspect of Scourge with this version of Taskmaster, I think that would have also added a lot more variety to some of these action scenes we see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, imagine Yelena finally thinking she has things together, right? Finally thinking, well, I've got my team. I know who the bad guy is. My dad's here. I got a friend. He's even worse off than I am. I'm gonna help him through this. And then Taskmaster turns around and, does the Black Widow stance and pulls out the stingers and pulls out the batons. And it's like, hey, Yelena, are you strong enough to fight this woman who was trained on your sister's fighting style? Because probably, the original Black Widow, Nat, she'd have access to all of that. So that would have been a pretty cool fight of like her just using her sister's stuff and watching Elena saying, well, like, am I going to be able to can I take this poor woman out? Knowing the tactics she's using that's going to hurt psychologically. So yeah, man, there was a lot there. I don't know why they took her out, but that's a shame.
Yeah. And then of course David Harbour as Red Guardian. Again, he felt like mostly like comic relief in Black Widow, but then in this he does have some of that as well. Like he's just really funny in so many scenes. But beyond that, there's a lot of emotion to his character, and he does a really good job switching between the Santa type character as Val calls him, but also this like tortured father, this tortured hero, this fallen hero who wants a chance to prove himself again. I thought he did an amazing job.
I agree. One of the things I love about this movie is it made me think of All-Star Superman, where Grant Morrison talked about um, that story is filled with all of the characters who share attributes with Superman, but they are not Superman. And the story is in showing you why this character is so interesting and enduring, and the other ones, Zabaro, Atlas, the astronauts are not him, even though they may have his powers or his appearance or something else. Thunderbolts is very interesting because it lives in the shadow of Captain America, right? Captain America retired, he's living with Peggy, he's happy, everyone is good. And then this movie is filled with characters who walked part of that path but couldn't quite make it work, right? The Red Guardian is like, no, man, he's so proud about his off-brand Soviet serum because it allowed him to help other people. And then the Soviet Union collapses and he goes to jail for 30 years. He should have been a great hero, but because of the place he was forced to be a hero, he ultimately fell. And then you have Bucky, who's trying his best, right, to live up to the standards of his best friend, and he doesn't know what to do. So what does he do? He runs for office. And the scene where Bunk pulls him aside and goes, "Kid, you're not in espionage anymore. You chose to do this. You have constituents. We have to do this the right way." When he's talking about the cameras, I was dying laughing because it's like this is the most well-trained, unarmed combat guy in the entire world. And the Bunk is sitting here trying to explain to him, like, nah, man, that's not the job anymore. I know you can do that job, but can you do this job? And then finally you have John Walker, and everyone's like, were you Captain America? And he's like, yeah. And everyone's like, well, you were really bad at it. And then eventually he realizes, like, Well, yeah, but it's hard. It's really, really hard to do that. There's that great scene where Mel, she says the theme of the movie, she says it out loud. It's like if you put someone like Steve Rogers through Rebirth, you get Captain America. If you put someone like Bruce Banner through it with all this rage, you get the Incredible Hulk. If you put Robert Reynolds through it, you get the Sentry, but you also get the Void. That's the risk there. And John is standing there like, well, yeah, I went through this too, and I did something that was really, really bad, but I have this second chance, and you can bet I'm not going to waste it. So I like all of these characters being forced to confront that. And when they do, it's like, well, here's your opportunity. What are you going to do? What do they do? They step up.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was great. I clued in on that as well. And so one of the things that, he talked about, Red Guardian talked about in Black Widow is that he's like, "Oh, I fought Captain America," right? He's like, "I fought Captain America." And there's been debate online. I've seen a lot of people saying like, "No, he's just lying. He's just making it up." And I'm like, there were other Captain Americas in the Marvel comics, so it's possible he could have fought like the Grand Director or something like that. But
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know where I read this. I thought it was Isaiah Bradley. I maybe
oh,
I
that's another possibility too. Yeah.
yeah, I may have completely made that up, but as soon as you said that, my brain was like, oh, he meant Isaiah Bradley, right? But to your point, yeah, the Grand Director, Billy Burnside, or any of the others, those would be great stories. But yeah, I think Alexi was telling the truth. But to your point, it's like, well, was it really him, right? Like we know
Yeah.
Agent Carter was director of Shield, and I don't think she would have approved any other Captain Americas, but who knows what happened at the height of the Cold War?
And, one of the things that I think that they've done really well in the MCU is this idea of it's not so much the super soldier serum that was the thing they had trouble getting back, because we've seen, because that's the thing in the comics they've always said, oh, we just have never been able to recreate the super soldier serum. It's like, well, you've created like so many different variations of it that you've basically done it. So I don't know why it's such a big sticking point that we lost the original formula when you've been able to replicate it in other types of ways, or at least the effects of it. But it's the idea that no, it's Steve's character. That's what made him the super soldier serum. That's what we haven't been able to replicate. So when it comes to, we give it to to Bucky, he's the Winter Soldier. He's not Captain America. You give it to John Walker, he becomes, it's just like, goes back to what Stanley Tucci said in the first Avenger. He's like, it enhances whatever's there. So good becomes better, bad becomes worse. And I think that's a really good way. And I'm pretty sure that's something that the MCU introduced, and it's
Well, that
such
was
a
in the
good way of looking at it.
Ultimates.
Oh, that was in the Ultimates? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. I know. People have differing opinions on that, but one of the things that I always loved was Mark Miller's version of Captain America. Not because I think that it was in any way better than the original one, but because being a product of its time, it was able to again reintroduce it to a new generation. And one of the things that he did was. He did a story where Fury reveals that they have been trying, with access to Steve's blood, they have been trying to reproduce the results of Erskine's original projects. And there are just like 24 test subjects who couldn't make it. And then finally they find one guy, I think he's actually named Lieber for Stan Lee, and they put the serum into him and it works and it takes. But immediately he like doesn't want to listen to anyone. He just wants to go out and help people, and eventually he burns out his body. And Fury's like, you can't do this. This is magic. This is whatever made Cap work, whatever made Rogers work, we can't duplicate. Whatever made him survive in the ice until we needed him most, we can't duplicate it. So we should stop trying. But I will say I really did think that Captain America Brave New World, the climax was going to be Falcon
Sam.
taking Sam taking the project, because again, I think he's the type of person who he would have gotten superpowers. He would have turned out to be exactly like Steve, and he would have been able to, go toe to toe with Han Solo there. So I was a little upset that didn't happen.
We just talked about that recently. It's an upcoming episode that hasn't been released at the time of recording, but by the time people listen to this, they'll have heard that. But yeah, one of the things that I talked about when we talked about Brave New World was this whole idea in there that Sam's like, well, I should have taken the serum, and Bucky's like, well, why? And he's like, but Sam doesn't really have a good answer for why he doesn't take the serum or why he should take the serum. He doesn't. It's just like this question that's asked, and then it's like the movie never answers it. That kind of annoyed me about it.
I agree. Yeah, when I watched that scene in theaters, I was like, well, yeah, I think you should. I think I think there's a reason he gave you that shield. You're the type of person who, you know, would be okay with it. Like again, it wasn't created by an evil person. It was used by evil people and sometimes on evil people, but it was created for a noble person. It was created by a person who wanted to end war as quickly as possible. So,
Hmm.
people always forget that. But yeah, I was expecting Sam to be like, it's a leap of faith. It's all it ever is, right? And to
Yeah.
come out of there going like, oh, now I can protect more people. Now, I got a jet engine strapped to my back, sure, but now if I get punched by Red Hulk, it's not going to break every bone in my body. So
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Agree completely. But yeah, it's Sebastian Stan in this too is Bucky. Again, like you were talking about the scene with him and the Wendell Pierce. I love that when he's like the packet, and Bucky's like the packet. He's like, yes, Bucky, read the
yeah.
packet, read the packet. And then you see Bucky in his apartment. He's like, read the fucking packet. He's just like going through these pages, like, yeah, man, bureaucracy is a pain in the ass. It's that old quote, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
I I love that. I thought it was so consistent with his character that he could effortlessly get on a motorcycle, get a shotgun, take out an entire convoy, take down five superpowered people, doesn't even break a sweat, is sitting there waiting for transportation. They're all tied up. He's ready to go. But like again, to your point, he can't even read a document without being so uncomfortable that he drops food all over himself. And I thought that was a great character moment because it's like Bucky's always been defined by the conflict in front of him. You give this guy a terrible assignment, kill Howard Stark, assassinate whomever, just be the absolute worst. He's going to do it, even if he doesn't want to. He's just naturally going to do it. And, you watched over the course of the show. I always remember the line where Sam tells him, well, of course you're not, happy with the resolution to this. You have to learn to a way to be of service. And I thought that this was a nice evolution of that, where he's like, well, let me go into office. Everyone already thinks that I'm this great patriotic hero and I save the world and whatever. Let's maybe I can do this. So I thought it was a great look for him. And even towards the end when he's sitting there with Mel and you see that Mel, is about to use the kill switch and is about to do all of that. That's him. That's not a gun. That's not a bomb. That's not violence. It's empathy. It's compassion. It's talking to someone and it's being honest with her, right? He doesn't try to say like he doesn't lie to her. He doesn't undercut it. He's saying, I've done horrible things. You can choose not to do them, which again is literally it's a direct quote from Hawkeye in the original books. And I don't think that's intentional. I don't think the co-writers of this book had the Busiek run out, but I do. I like the symmetry and I like the repeating themes of all that. I thought it worked beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the whole idea that he is just and it's almost like as soon as he has the chance to slip back into Winter Soldier mode, it's like he's almost happy to do it. Just leave the bureaucracy behind.
Yeah, he's so relieved. He's like, "Oh, all you need me to do is go and fight a bunch of people. I can do. That I can punch my vibranium arm into the ground and flip a Humvee. That I can do. But talk to reporters or sit here quietly or contemplatively or read the rules of order. I can't do any of that." And it's like, "Well, no, that's your character arc. What comes next when you've decided that a life of violence isn't what you want and your best friend went off to be happy. You have to find something else to fill your life with and you've decided to be of service." It's like what could be a better way for Captain America's oldest friend and partner than to look at the system and say, you know what? I need to fix this for everyone else. I need to have a wider berth with my abilities. And I think it's great. I think there's so many story potential there. If they were to do Winter Soldier season 2, and it's him and the Bunk, and maybe they can bring back the head of the Ox Task Force, who's also from the show The Wire. He played Frank Sabatka. Just give me that. Just give me the West Wing, but it's Bucky and the Bunk and all these other characters. I want that. I want that so badly. I don't even, there doesn't even need to be a supervillain. Just give me 8 episodes of that. please. I'm
That'd be
begging you.
awesome. Yeah. Well, and Sebastian Stan to that point as well. He's such an amazing actor. Did you see The Apprentice?
No, I don't have it in me.
Uh,
One day I will.
yeah, well, it is a movie, and if you know anything about Trump's life, like it's not going to tell you any new information, but it's all horrible people. But my God, Sebastian Stan, he just perfect, perfect casting in that. Surprising, he played that role effortlessly. Or even like I saw some of the Pam and Tommy TV show, like him playing Tommy Lee as well. Like he did a great job in that as well. He's such an underrated actor, I think, because most people just know him as Bucky.
First movie I ever saw him in was Hot Tub Time Machine, and he plays the one of the antagonists. He plays a ski instructor, and he's fighting John Cusack, and it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. He plays it over the top, terrible 80s stereotype, really hamming it up. It's a thing of beauty. And then I think the next year he shows up as Bucky, and I was like, I
Wow.
know that guy's a ski instructor.
I'll have to check that out just for that then. The other thing I wanted to mention, well, first off, I mean, like, there's not enough good things to say about Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Like I've loved her as Val throughout every time she appears in, like somehow playing someone more sinister than her character on Vice, but more competent as well.
Veep. Vice?
Veep, not Vice.
Veep,
Yes,
sorry.
Veep. You're right. You're right.
Because there was a movie Vice with
That was
Batman as
the
Dick
movie.
Cheney, so that's why I
Yeah.
was like, was she in that? Did I not remember that? Okay, cool, cool.
No, yeah, Veep. I meant yeah, but she's basically playing that character, but just actually competent this time around.
I mean, she has the best line in the entire movie. She says, uh, you know, um, oh dear God, righteousness without power is just an opinion, and she says it
Yes.
so casually, but it's perfect. It's like it's like you stay the hero until and for too long, and then you become the villain or whatever it is Harvey Dent says. But it's just like it's one of those things. The first time I heard it, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. Like she is immaculately cast as Val. Like, and it's crazy too because in the comics, the Contessa, as you referred to her before, is a Bond girl. She's Nick Fury's partner. She goes out, she fights Nazis, she kills Hydra, she does all this other stuff. But here she's this like manipulative, scheming, but also brilliant bureaucrat. If you think about it, she wins. She gets exactly what she wants. She there's no failure for her. There's no failing here. She said, I want a superhero team that is completely indebted to the United States government and therefore me. Well, she gets that. She also
Hmm.
proved that, the most powerful superhuman ever could be achieved in a lab with, genetic engineering. So I thought she was great. Again, I thought she's one of these antagonists where it's like, I put her in everything,
Yes.
she's the inversion of Nick Fury, but far more relatable because her brand of evil is something a lot of people are going to end up agreeing with. She's
Yeah.
smart enough to outwit the hero, but she's also vain enough where when she screws up, it feels honest. So she was a joy to watch. And again, I
Yes.
hope she comes back. If they want to put her in charge of damage control or something else that's more fictional, I'm all for it. But please don't get rid of her anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. And I just love how unflappable she is. Like even when Sentry goes against her, like it's not like a curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal moment. It's just like she's like, ah, crap. It's like now I got to deal with this.
Yeah, it's hilarious because she goes, "This is such an inconvenience." Like she's not afraid for her life or anything like that. She's like, "Oh, I thought I was done with this." Like before she goes into the room, she asks Mel, "Does this look nurturing enough?" Like what a great line that is. And only she would be able to pull it off because she knows exactly what she's trying to do with this guy. And to your point, it's like not only could he kill you, he'd kill everyone in the building. He almost kills everyone on the island. And she's just like, oh, this is not what I want. And she keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Again, at the end, it's like she did it. She, fake it till you make it. She made a new Avengers team and they are beholden to her. So more power to her.
And to that, again, the Veep comparison, like that is totally a line I could hear Selena Meyer saying, like, does this look nurturing enough?
Yeah,
uh,
no, I kept expecting the guy from the first Transformers movie with the big, comically large coffee cup to come stumbling out of left field because it was such a Veep moment and I was all about it.
and then and then we had the showdown. This is kind of the last thing I want to talk about. I don't know about you, but I thought as much as I liked the final showdown, I think one of the missed opportunities we had here is that we don't get to see any of the other characters in kind of like their own personal hell when they get into the void. So we just see them all crashing through the end. Like we've seen a lot of this almost repetition of Yelena's scene in the forest, and it gets a little bit old by the time we see it again and again and again. But I felt like we could have done a little bit more seeing some of, John Walker, seeing especially some of Ava, since we saw like almost nothing of her. But even like, Alexei, I would have liked to see some of his hell, or even Bucky, because there's this whole idea of him, and not like, but if we saw him like, even fighting back against it in some way, like I could just have this image of Sebastian Stan like going in and seeing like him in like the Hydra chair from Winter Soldier, and instead he just like punches the Doctor out, and then he just punches his way through the wall. He's like, I'm done with that, or something like that. Something I think I would have liked to see some more stuff about the other characters and what they were going through in the void.
I agree completely. This is what I was alluding to earlier, where when I said a lot of the scenes felt like they went on a little bit too long. Because yeah, it's like, okay, I can't watch you betray that little girl in the Russian forest this many times because it is really bumming me out. And I would have preferred, yeah, even if it was 90 seconds of, Ava in a bubble and being unable to go out and watching her family die, or going to the quantum realm, or watching Goliath fail, or who knows what Shield had her do, or even do a room where it was like, oh, the Ghost and the Winter Soldier met once, neither of them remembered it, something like that. There definitely was a lot of real estate left over, where if we had trimmed some of the other scenes, and again, it sounds like I'm picking on Yelena. I'm not. I thought she was really good, but I wanted to see more of everyone else, especially because I can't imagine we're going to get Thunderbolts too. So no, I'm with you. I would have loved to have seen a room in the void where Alexei, again, the guy, the whole point of Black Widow is he was in a Russian prison for 30 years, not like a US prison or Guantanamo. He was in a Russian prison for 30 years and they expected he wasn't coming back. So it's like, no, the fact that he is a normal dude who still loves his adopted daughter is really great, because anyone else under those conditions would have broken. So
Yeah. Um, and yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we'll be getting one, because now we're going straight into Doomsday after this. At the post credit scene, we see them witnessing the Fantastic Four crossover into the 616. Um, Apparently, it looks like that Zemo was actually originally going to be in an early post credit scene where they would have had him in prison, like pulling the strings, kind of like in a Kaiser Soze type of reveal. And initial drafts also included, you mentioned Bill Foster before. He was actually in initial drafts as well, to continue his relationship with Ghost, and then he was going to join the team at the end of the film, but they decided to write him out because he didn't have the same background trauma as the other characters had. Um, but yeah, I don't know what we're going to see next. I think by the time we get to Doomsday and then Secret Wars, by the time we're back into whatever the post Secret Wars landscape is going to look like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to have the new Avengers around anymore. And whether or not they come back as the Thunderbolts, or as in some other way, again, this did this didn't do well in the box office, surprisingly, despite how much positive word of mouth it's gotten. I would have hoped it would have done better on Disney Plus at least, but it doesn't seem like it has.
yeah, it's rough. Part of me, I wish that if this new Avengers thing was planned from the beginning, they had just went with that. Because a movie with Avengers in the title would have done very well. And then maybe you could have gotten a little help with the direction and the editing. Bring in someone with a little bit more experience who could have cleaned it up, brought in maybe a couple of more actors for bigger cameos, and then just said, this movie's going to be the new Avengers. That's what this movie is called. And then, pushed it that way, I feel like it probably would have done very, very well, but who knows, between the strike, the pandemic, and everything else, I maybe they were just happy it came out. But yeah, if we never see them again, it would be very unfortunate. But I do like the fact that when you have the time jump of the year and change at the end, most of them seem pretty happy. right? Most of them,
Mhm.
it's like, Lexi's here with his adopted daughter. He got what he wanted. He got that Wheaties box, and John Walker's sitting there. He's wearing his Ranger hat, his Army Ranger hat. Like everyone seems to be pretty happy. So it's like, if I never see them again, at least didn't end on a cliffhanger. At least I know they got to have a good time.
This is why we're Avengers with a Z.
I'm down for it, man. I really am. Again, I don't even know. I'm not picking on Brave New World. There was a lot in that movie I liked, but part of me at the end is like, well, you can't just say you're going to form the Avengers have to come together. Like, that was the whole point of the first movie is like just getting six people in a room was very, very difficult. So it's like, if it's going to be, you know, Sam as Captain America and the new Falcon, who is fine, but he's a brand new character. I don't even think he existed in the comics when the Winter Soldier movie came out. It's like, well, who else are you gonna? I don't even know the other characters that are around it. What are you gonna get Moon Knight? It's like none of these characters have anything in common. So I don't know. I I don't know what to make of the next two films. I, of course, will see them no matter what they are, but I am very curious as to who will actually be the Avengers. And if they have to lead with the former Thunderbolts and I don't know, take them off the board very quickly, then at least they may get one last chance to shine.
Yeah. I think what they really, and I feel like Thunderbolts was kind of a casualty of Marvel's reshuffling of stuff after. And I really think what they should have done is instead of going straight into the multiverse saga, is the post Endgame landscape should have really been dealing with that idea of, well, okay, the Avengers are gone. How do we rebuild the Avengers? How do we build something new out of the Avengers? And instead, that's always just kind of like on the fringes here. Like people saying, well, the Avengers aren't around anymore. We've heard that so many times throughout this whole thing. And when Ross goes up to Sam in Brave New World and says, I want you to rebuild the Avengers. It's like, oh, finally, why didn't somebody think about this before? And it's like, and then we get this movie here, and it just feels like you could have expanded this out into a much longer subplot that was running through all these movies. But unfortunately, they didn't. And it all just kind of, and now we're just kind of like going straight into whatever we're going to get with Doomsday, which very much, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but also at the same time, I think there's some truth to the concern that they're just covering their asses now.
Yeah, man. I don't know what to make of it. I will say though, something that I found very interesting on one of my rewatches of the Thunderbolts is how as a film one of the co-writers is the showrunner on the show The Bear, which if you haven't seen it is the best show on television. It's certainly my favorite show currently running. But this movie is very much in conversation with the Avengers film, specifically the first one. There's a conversation when Mel and Val are in the limo together, and they don't yet know that Alexi is overhearing them, where they're talking about how the superheroes that they've got trapped in the vault of all places, they can't possibly team up because they're all antisocial lunatics. They're not the type of people who do this. And to me, that reminded me of the what Bruce Banner says in the first Avengers movie. He's like, we're not a team, we're a chemical mixture. It's that heavy-handed Whedon dialogue. But again, it's that parallel, it's that rhyme, right? Where it's like, well, no, of course they can't get together. They're all losers. And they do. That's the whole point. That's what an Avengers team is. It's not the Justice League. It's the people you have available. My favorite Avengers team in the comics is known as the Cookie Quartet, which is all the founders quit and Captain America is left to find whoever he can. So he grabs three supervillains: Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, and they defeat Kang the Conqueror. I mean, that's just what he does. Is like, who do I have around? So I felt like the Thunderbolts was kind of going for that feel. Like the room that the Sentry wakes up in is very similar to the room that the Captain America wakes up in at the very end of the first Avenger. It's that facade. Does this
Mhm.
look nurturing enough? It's the same way as the fake nurse walking in and saying, "Hey, did you enjoy that baseball game?" He says, "Well, I should have. I was there." And then, obviously he
Mhm.
breaks out and runs out on 42nd Street. Um, And then I think I mentioned this before, but I'm from New York. I work in that area, so watching them be right on 45th Street, though I think that was a set. I don't think they actually filmed on scene. But if you assume that they are on scene, they are around the corner from where the Avengers first gather, first where they have that big group shot. So in a lot of ways, if they had just called this movie The New Avengers, I think a lot of the legwork was already done. Like this could have
Mhm.
been the huge tent whole thing, and then it could have very nicely led into the next thing, because it's like, well, these characters, they're not marquees. You can bump off a few of them if you need be. They already killed the Taskmaster, but at least that momentum would have been there, because right now looking at it, it's like, well, I don't know how we get from where we are to where we need to be.
Yeah. All right. My daughter just ended up drawing on some documents that she shouldn't have been. Okay, that's
Oh
not going to be
no.
good. Oh yeah. All right. Okay. That's a good note to end on, I think, unfortunately. All right. So Mike, why don't you tell people anything you'd like to promote or anywhere you'd like to send people?
Sure. Anyone who's interested should please check out Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey, wherever you get your podcasts. It is great. It has tons of content, and if you're lucky, you'll grab an episode with Perry or myself.
Yes, second that as well. Great show. Anthony's always a lot of fun to talk to. Always has guests with excellent insights, and somehow I ended up being involved in there too. But there are plenty of people who have much better insights than me, such as Mike and a lot of others on there. So check that out as well. As for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, and we are Super Cinema Pod on Instagram and Threads, and my son's bothering me right now. Superherocinephiles.com on Blue Sky as well. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate it if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.